Hey, let's get real for a second. Prayer, it's one of those things we all know we should do, right? Maybe you got a quick thanks God before dinner or a desperate help me out here when life throws a curveball. But have you ever stopped to wonder if you're actually doing it wrong? I mean, Jesus himself dropped some pretty serious warnings about prayer that might make you rethink your whole approach. What if the way you're talking to God is missing the mark? And not just a little, but in a way that could be holding you back from something deeper. Stick with me here, because we're about to unpack what Jesus said, why it hits hard, and how it could flip your prayer life upside down in the best way possible. Picture this. Jesus is up on a hillside, surrounded by a crowd hanging on his every word. He's dropping truth bombs left and right in what we now call the Sermon on the Mount. Then he gets to prayer, and he doesn't sugarcoat it. In Matthew 6:05, he says, "When you pray, don't be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by others. Truly, I tell you, they've received their reward in full. But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen." Oof, that's a mic drop right there. Jesus isn't just giving a casual tip. He's calling out a whole vibe. The religious big shots back then were all about the spotlight. They'd stand in the busiest spots, throwing out loud, flowery prayers like they were auditioning for a Grammy. And Jesus, he's not impressed. He's saying, look, if you're praying to flex for the crowd, that applause is all you're getting. God's not in it. Let's be honest, maybe we don't literally stand on street corners, but how often do we catch ourselves praying with one eye on what others think? Posting that perfect blessed moment on Instagram, or tossing out a pious-sounding line at church to sound spiritual? Jesus is waving a red flag. If your prayer's more about your image than your heart, you're doing it wrong. Here's where it gets juicy. Jesus isn't just mad about the where or the how. He's zeroing in on the why. Check out Matthew 6:7. "And when you pray, do not keep on babbling like pagans, for they think they'll be heard because of their many words." Translation: God's not a slot machine where you pump in more words to hit the jackpot. The pagans back then thought long, repetitive chants would twist God's arm. Jesus says, nope, he's after something real, not a performance. Think about it. How often do we fall into that trap? Maybe you've rattled off a prayer on autopilot, same old lines, no heart behind it. Or maybe you've stretched it out, thinking quantity equals quality. I've been there. A few years back, I was stressing over a job interview. I prayed for like 20 minutes straight, repeating, "Please, God, let me get this," until I sounded like a broken record. Guess what? I didn't feel any closer to him, just more anxious. That's when it hit me. Jesus isn't counting words. He's checking your soul. So what's the fix? Jesus lays it out in Matthew 6:6. "Go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you." This isn't about locking yourself in a closet. It's about locking out the noise. It's you and God, no audience, no agenda. Just raw, unfiltered you. I love how practical this is. Jesus isn't asking for a theology degree or a perfect script. He's saying, strip it down, get alone, get honest. Ever tried that? I did, after that job interview fiasco. One night I shut my bedroom door, ditched the rambling, and just said, "God, I'm freaked out. I need you." No fluff, no filter, and you know what? Peace crept in. Not because the job landed, spoiler, it didn't, but because I stopped performing and started connecting. That's the game changer Jesus is pointing to. Prayer isn't a show. It's a lifeline. When you ditch the act and bring your real self, fears, mess-ups, hopes, God meets you there. It's not about impressing him. It's about trusting Him. Now, Jesus doesn't leave us hanging. Right after the warnings, He drops the ultimate prayer blueprint in Matthew 6, 9, and 13, the Lord's Prayer. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. You know it. But don't just skim it. This thing's packed with gold. First off, it starts with who God is. Father, holy, sovereign. Before you ask for a single thing, Jesus says, hey, remember who you're talking to. It's not a cosmic vending machine. It's the Creator who loves you like a dad. Then it moves to His will. Your kingdom come. Your will be done. That's a gut check. Am I praying for my plans or His? Then come the asks. Daily bread, forgiveness, protection, short, simple, real, no fluff, no grandstanding, just the stuff of life. And it wraps with praise, for yours is the kingdom, the power, and the glory. Start to finish, it's a masterclass in keeping it real, focused, and God-centered. I started using this as my reset button. When I catch myself overcomplicating prayer, or worse, faking it, I lean on these lines. It's like Jesus handed us the perfect playbook to dodge the traps He warned about. Speaking of traps, let's talk about how Jesus' warnings still sting today. Hypocrisy's the obvious one. Praying for likes instead of love. But there's more. Ever prayed out of guilt? Like, I should do this, so here's 5 minutes of blah, blah, blah. That's not connection. That's obligation, and Jesus isn't buying it. Or how about praying without faith? Hebrews 11:6 says, without faith it's impossible to please God. If you're tossing words into the void without believing He's listening, you're missing the point. I've done that too, praying half-heartedly like I'm hedging my bets. Jesus says, cut it out, bring some trust to the table. Then there's the look at me trap. Maybe you're not shouting in the synagogue, but are you dropping hints about your prayer life to sound holy? Oh yeah, I was up at 5 a.m. praying. Cool story, bro, but who's that for? Jesus says, keep it between you and God. The reward's in the quiet, not the clout. Here's the kicker. Jesus isn't just nitpicking. He's showing us a better way because it matters. Prayer done right isn't a chore, it's a power-up. When you stop performing and start connecting, stuff shifts. Your stress, it doesn't vanish, but it gets lighter. Your faith, it grows roots. Your relationship with God, it goes from a duty to a lifeline. Take my buddy Jake. He used to treat prayer like a checklist. 5 minutes, done, moving on. Then he hit a rough patch, lost his job, marriage on the rocks. One day he took Jesus' advice literally, shut the door, got real. No script, just tears and, I can't do this alone. He told me later, man, I felt Him like He was right there. Things didn't flip overnight, but Jake did. He found peace, then courage, then a new gig. Prayer didn't fix his life. It fixed him. That's the why behind Jesus' warning. He's not trying to guilt trip you. He's inviting you into something deeper. When you pray His way, humble, honest, trusting, you're not just talking at God, you're walking with Him. Let's bring it home. Jesus' warning isn't a slap on the wrist, it's a wake-up call. Are you stuck in the hypocrite trap, chasing applause instead of God? Are you babbling on autopilot, hoping more words mean more answers? Or are you keeping it surface level, scared to go deep? Here's the good news. You don't have to stay there. Jesus already gave you the playbook. Go quiet, get real, trust Him. Try it today. Shut the door, literally or figuratively, and talk to Him like He's your best friend. No script, no show. Tell Him what's eating you, thank Him for what's good, and listen. You might not hear a voice, but you'll feel something, a shift, a peace, a spark, because here's the truth. Prayer's not about getting it perfect. It's about getting it right, and right means real. Jesus warned us for a reason. He wants you closer, stronger, freer. So what's your next prayer gonna be? Make it count.